Alright, let's make a video about media things. Because I haven't really done a video on this, and I've been intending to for like the last few months, but it's never really been a thing that I've approached, and I kind of want to just get it out of the way. So, last November, I upgraded to a 4K TV because, as you all may know, Ryan moved out to Texas and then he moved back. And when he moved back, he didn't need his TV anymore, but obviously he couldn't return it, so he ended up just selling it to me for a really good price. And it's been a mainstay here, and it's been awesome ever since I got it. The ads notwithstanding, even though I can disable them, they're kind of annoying, but it's a nice upgrade from my old Panasonic Viera, which has been just an absolutely awesome TV, and I still actually use it. It's actually in my girlfriend's room now, so that thing's still going, and I bought that thing pretty much brand new in 2011, so man, what a TV that thing is. So I want to go over my 4K setup because this was quite a leap. 1080p these days is not hard to drive. Anything made in like the last 10 years should do it no problem, but something like this is going to require a whole nother level of power to drive the TV. 4K is not fun to deal with. In fact, if we go up, we can see my soundbar, and this is another problem, because this soundbar, now, audio personally to me is a timeless thing. Time is not going to age good audio. For example, my amp that runs my main system, which is what my computer is connected to, and what my iPod dock down here is connected to, that thing is from 2006, and it's still going strong. So audio is pretty timeless. But for the soundbar, I use ARC, or ARC, or however you want to pronounce it, and that's the HDMI audio return channel, as the name states. And the problem is, this TV has a limited amount of inputs, as you can see. Oh, hey, we got an ad, look at that. We have a very limited amount of inputs. We only have 3 HDMI inputs. The first one, the one my media center is connected to, and the soundbar, as you can see here. So if I can conserve inputs, I prefer to do so, and normally I would just run this over Toslink, but the problem with that is that I lose independent volume control, and I have to have a separate remote for the soundbar. Not very nice at all. So ARC is pretty awesome, and it allows me to just control everything with one remote, for the most part. I have to remember to point at the T, but as you can see, both are changing at the same time. So the problem is this soundbar is from 2014, and it was free, or essentially free. My roommate got it, never used it, asked her if I could have it, and she said, sure, why not? And actually, if we go down here, you can see there's actually a wireless subwoofer down there, and it works well enough because all it does is provide bass, so I don't mind it being wireless. And it does provide a nice boost over the built-in speakers on this TV. However, because it is from an earlier time, it is, of course, limited to HDMI 1.4, which can't carry 4K 60. I'm pretty sure this thing can't do 4K 30 either, but that's a kind of huge problem for me, because obviously I'm going to need 4K pass-through. But since I started streaming, this actually turned into a strength, because what I could do is I use the pass-through to run my capture setup now. Because even though this guy says 4K, it will not do 4K. Not even close. And because I have a PS4 Slim over here, that's capped at 1080p. My Switch is capped at 1080p. My One X is really the only thing that can do 4K. So it's kind of nice because I can just keep the capture card on that pass-through and just connect up what I want to stream up to the capture card, and it'll go into the pass-through. Now, the problem with this is I can go to the soundbar input here. Now, the problem here is that if I turn on the capture card, actually the capture card is currently on, we're not going to see anything. So what we have to do is we actually have to get the remote for the soundbar, which I had to go behind me there for a minute, and we have to hit source until we're on HDMI. And now it's actually going to go to no signal, and that's being displayed by the capture card. So just go back to digital in, and there we go. So I have to have the remote, or I have to go up here and just manually switch it via the controls. Kind of annoying, but whatever. It gives me another input to play with, and that's all that matters. So, kind of sucks. But I think what's kind of cool is this TV does have AV inputs for classic consoles, and it actually, go around here, there we go. You can see it's kind of on a dongle down there. That's kind of neat that it supports that. I do want to get a classic console at some point for this thing, like a Wii, modded Wii or something. So that's nice to have. Now, the thing driving all this, because I talked about having to drive this, now I could just phone it in and use my desktop PC for this. I mean, it's got a Ryzen 3700X, it's got a GTX 1060, 4K playback should be absolutely no problem whatsoever for that thing, right? Well, I don't want to run an HDMI cable all the way to it, and on top of that, I don't want to have to turn it on, sit at my desk, move things around, move it to the monitor that slot this thing is assigned to. So I decided to build a media center for this because one, I would just use the smart TV features that we have here, but ads are bad. The ads for YouTube are just ridiculous. They're long, and when you get a mid-roll, I have to pick up the remote and then skip the video. Not a good idea. I hate it, and with ads being like 5 minutes plus, it's really annoying because I'd rather just get a 30-second ad and sit through it at that point. But having access to Xfinity Stream is pretty nice. That's the only reason I have this thing plugged into the internet, to be honest. Anyway, let's get off that sidebar and get back to the media center. Now, we're going to come down here, and this is pretty much the media center. Now, this is built in a Fractal Node 202, which is a nightmare to open and a nightmare to deal with from a cable management perspective. So I'm not going to open it up to show you what's inside. However, I'm going to go ahead and switch off to it, because you may be wondering what this little dingus end down here is, and that's for the media center. So go ahead and turn it on. And this may shock some of you, but I'm running Windows 7 on it. So this is powered by a relatively modest i5-4460S, a AMD RX 550, 2GB, and I do have a 128GB SSD in here and a 500GB cache drive. And down below it, actually, down below this little deck here is where my server is sitting, which is feeding this thing's network content. So we get this login screen. If I just hit OK on the remote, it goes right into Kodi, and that's what's pretty much running this from a front-end point of view. Hit the Windows key. We go back, and now we're at the main screen. So the reason I did this is, again, ads, and because the Roku doesn't even have a Twitch app, and I do watch Twitch quite a bit. And I would like to replace this with something a little more meant for the occasion, like an NVIDIA Shield TV, but that's pretty low on my priority list as of right now. I don't want to have to deal with that, and on top of that, it's Android TV, which who knows how awesome that's going to be in the future, because it seems like Google has all but abandoned it at this point, so NVIDIA is kind of keeping the dream alive. I could be wrong on that, but that's last I checked. And all this stuff here, all the movies and whatnot, are actually being fed to it over the network, so that's pretty nice too. And if I need to, I can always just go over here, hit power, and I'm actually using a little app called Launcher for Kodi that means this thing will fully just boot into Kodi, as we will see here. It's going to shut down. It's going to go to starting Windows. Now, you might be asking, why are you running Windows 7? Windows 7 is out of support. What is wrong with you? Why not accept Windows 10 into your life? And honestly, I don't mind Windows 10. Short of the stupid things they've been doing with Edge and such as of the recent updates, but I don't mind Windows 10. The reason why I did this is because for this to work fully with Kodi under Windows, you have to make some tweaks to the registry to map keys to the unused buttons on this remote. Like, say if I go down here, if I hit info, it brings this up. Now, the problem is that doesn't work normally. It supports basic navigation out of the box, but if you want some of the expanded features, like, you know, if I go over to YouTube here, say I get, you know, knee deep in something here, if I hit the Windows key, it goes all the way back to the main menu. That isn't mapped by default. And in fact, on Windows 7, this will actually bring up Media Center, which you can disable that. But registry tweaks are required for this to work. And that's the problem. Because for whatever reason, Windows 10 kept undoing my registry tweaks. So I would just go sit in front of my TV and find that half my controls no longer work. Which is really annoying. Because by default, the volume keys are not even mapped. So I can't mute from within Kodi. I'd have to reach for my TV remote. And that's really annoying to me. So I ended up having to just roll it back to Windows 7. I may consider rolling it back up to Windows 8, but Windows 10, even an older version, because I was running LTSC on this thing, and LTSC, you know, doesn't ever get updates, at least feature updates, and it was still having the same problem where it would just keep overriding the registry with stuff that would invalidate what I was using this remote for. Now, the move would be to get something like a Logitech Harmony and use that, because this is a complicated, cumbersome remote. The only reason I got this is because it was dirt cheap and I already had the receiver handy for it. So that's kind of another thing down the line that I would like to do, but I'm not going to do it now because the Harmony is a bit of a pricey remote. I don't feel like dealing with it. If you don't want to use a remote, which I recommend you do, because then you don't have to worry about something like this. I actually had this running over Bluetooth with this to control it before I got the remote, and it works, but the problem is you have to actually shut down the controller every time you're done with it. You have to power it back up, wait for it to connect if you want to do anything on the TV with it. It's really kind of annoying, and I'm glad I kind of went with the remote because the remote is always ready to go no matter what. But yeah, this is pretty much what runs this. I do want to get something a little bit better for this, like I said, like an NVIDIA Shield, because the 4460S in here is pretty awesome, but it's also getting a bit old and it kind of struggles a little bit with higher bitrate 4K content. So it's my goal to get something more meant for this, or maybe even a better system entirely. Because as of right now, yeah, this thing is running like some really expensive parts that Colin actually gave me for a pretty good deal. So, I don't know. It's a decision for another day, that's for sure. Anyway, that's pretty much really all there is to say about this whole setup. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and until next time, I will see you guys later.